Hi, my name is Michael Ash, and my risk matrix video project here is going to be about pipeline flying, specifically in the East Texas area where I am from. I don't have any work experience in this particular field or any aviation field at this point because I'm still learning how and haven't had the opportunity of being in that workplace. However, my dad has done a lot of low altitude jungle flying and part of his career overseas, so I'm somewhat familiar from his stories of what low altitude flying looks like and some of the risks that are associated with it. Um, so we'll jump right into my risk matrix here. I found this online, and I specifically chose one that was fairly simple and would work well with this kind of thing because there's not a whole lot of factors involved with it. So my risk number one is an engine failure. This is a medium and high risk scenario, which is what the orange is classified as, because while its occurrence is fairly improbable, good maintenance schedules really help with keeping this from happening. But the results of an engine failure, especially at this low altitude, would be incredibly poor. So some of the hazards we have associated with this is we are at a low altitude, which affects our ability to pick a field and get a good glide slope to it, because we're usually flying about 500 AGL to 1,000 doing this pipeline flying. And there's lots of trees in the East Texas area without a lot of open fields available for the emergency landing. While this seems pretty grim, there are some ways we can mitigate this risk. Some of them would be stringent maintenance schedules. Check your compression, do your, don't do a total engine overhaul, but disassemble your engine and check for cracks, leaks, etc. More often than your manual necessarily recommends. Another thing you can do, you can check your engine oil or change your engine oil every 50 hours instead of 100 hours. This will help. If you know the condition of your oil, it'll help give you a lot of insight into what condition your engine is in. And so sending oil into the lab can also help you determine what kind of wear you're having in your engine. And then replace your parts before they're at their minimum wear. The manual specifies, okay, this, say the spark plug has to be in this condition to be put back in the airplane. Well, maybe you decide, okay, you know what, it's not quite there yet, but I'm going to go ahead and replace it so I know it's not going to be a failure point during the flight. Next check we have is our pre-flight. Every time you go out to the airplane, check your quantity and check the condition. You can look at the color of the oil and figure out how long it's been in there. And if it's looking kind of dark, maybe you choose not to fly that day and get the oil change done and move on. Verify, you're inside your windows for all of your power plant related maintenance. Don't be outside of 100 hour, definitely, or outside your annual or anything, because that's unsafe for, you as PIC. And then know where your airports and specifically where the fields are in relation to your route of flight, because you're probably not going to be close enough to an airport. Risk number two is going to be low flying traffic. So this is also a medium high risk, which is that orange. The green is kind of low risk. Yellow is, your medium low. Our orange here is your medium high, and it's where you start considering the, really being careful about your planning and such. And then your red is extremely high risk. You're not expecting the flight to be completed successfully. And so, these events are probable, but keen vision should be able to keep the effects from becoming critical. Flying low in an uncontrolled class Gulf airspace means that we have a higher chance of having close calls with birds, unmanned aircraft, and of course your aircraft operating without avionics. And so some of these hazards, like I just mentioned, you got birds, drones, less options for collision avoidance, since there's only one, the only safe direction really is up or, left or right. You don't have the pitching down option really. And you're also in uncontrolled airspace, which means you're going to have an increase in aircraft without avionics and such can fly legally in that airspace, and there's no radar separation in Class Golf either. Some of the ways you can mitigate these risks. Oh, I forgot to mention you have helicopter traffic as well, especially in the East Texas area. We have a lot of medevac going back and forth. So some of the ways to mitigate this risk is you can, obviously watch for traffic. You have your ADS-B in for, your helicopters are going to have ADS-B out running. So you'll be able to see them, pop up if you're running Flight with one of the premium subscriptions or such. Know where your private airfields are located along your route, as, they're likely to have a higher concentration of aircraft not using their avionics. And then, keep your eyes out of the cockpit when possible. Don't sit there and write down numbers or do a bunch of planning and such in your aircraft when you're actually flying. Keep your eyes outside, looking for risks or hazards. My bad. So our third risk is ground terrain and obstacles. So this is a medium high risk because hitting while hitting ground terrain is not highly probable, or probable at all, it does get easy to fly under 500 feet AGL when you have changing ground terrain, which is illegal, which is definitely a unacceptable outcome of the flight. Also, towers can be hard to see with certain color backgrounds, making them a collision hazard at this altitude. So our hazards are, we have a collision hazard with towers because we're low altitude, and then possibly flying outside the regs with changing ground clearance from terrain. So some of the ways we can mitigate this risk is during our pre-flight, know our minimum safe altitudes in each sector on the sectionals before you even begin the flight. Know tower locations and height, both MSL and AGL. That way you can be sure to avoid those and complete the flight safely. And then during the flight, don't become complacent. Think about the next tower that you should see. Think about, your minimum altitude on your chart, and keep your eyes on a lookout for stuff that you might not have noticed on your chart whenever you're planning your flight. And doing these things should help to mitigate these risks. While this is a higher risk section of aviation just because you're operating general aviation aircraft at low altitudes and in the East Texas area without many options for landing and such. But with these steps, you can mitigate some of these risks to make it a more likely to be safer outcome, which is what risk mitigation is all about. Thank you so much.